Andre Mendoza may be a name that many of you are unfamiliar with. I myself hadn't heard about him until just recently. And while his name may not be as recognizable as Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy, Andre Mendoza is no less evil and just another example that monsters do exist and they live among us. Andre Mendoza is a name that for many in the area of Atizapan thought of as a harmless old man who was known to be somewhat annoying at times when he was drunk, but overall nobody thought him capable of hurting another person. He was a trusted member of the community and at one point was even the president of the Citizen Participation Council. With him being so close to the community, he was able to avoid any and all suspicion when it came to people going missing in the area, even when there were signs that something seemed off, especially when there were several times when the smell of burnt meat would be coming from his home. Many in the area chalked it up to his profession as a butcher, and the smell, while nasty, was nothing to be alarmed over. This isn't to say, though, that Andre was the picture-perfect person around the area. There were numerous reports of him being drunk in public and being labeled as a pervert when he was under the influence. A very stark contrast to the quiet and harmless old man when sober. Some even said that when he was drunk that he was completely unrecognizable with his actions. Yet, sober or not, on May 14, 2021, Reina Gonzalez, a longtime friend of Andre's, arrived at his home to buy parts for a cell phone. As Reina owned a cell phone business, and over the years, Andres had been a customer of Reina's several times. The problem arose when Reina did not return home, and her husband, Bruno Portillo, a police officer, became worried. He made his way over to the home of Andres to figure out what happened and if he had even seen Reina. Bruno was simply wanting to ask Andres the last time that he saw Reina and if she even made it to his house. In no way did Bruno suspect Andres in any way, at least at first. The suspicion began to grow shortly after Bruno arrived. Andres met him at the door and refused to let Bruno inside his home. Andres was also acting very nervous and somewhat aggressive when answering any question Bruno asked him. Bruno left shortly after and immediately made his way to the police station to report his wife missing and also on the suspicious nature of Andres. Shortly after the first visit, several other police officers arrived at Andreas's home, and after an argument which turned into a struggle, Andreas was handcuffed and placed in the back of a police car while police conducted their search. Around this time, a report was made to the police at the scene that surveillance footage showed Reina arriving and entering Andreas's home, but never leaving. When police entered the house, unknown to them, instead of walking into a simple house that looked like any other, they instead walked into something that was straight out of a horror movie. Police saw firsthand the depraved and nightmarish behavior of Andres Mendoza. The first thing that was seen were numerous knives and machetes covered in blood on both the counters and the table. There were also trash bags of various sizes littered around the home, and when opened, police were met with the sight of body parts crudely stuffed into each of these bags. The search continued, and police then found a small opening to a basement, and as they made their way inside, the smell of death was becoming stronger and stronger. Inside of the basement was something truly out of a nightmare. Not only were human bones scattered literally everywhere, but both body parts, fresh and others very old, were on multiple tables. Bag after bag were removed from the home, and Bruno watched on until he had to be escorted off the premises, a broken man now knowing the fate of his wife and seeing the monster that was responsible for her demise. Andres was taken to the nearest police station and held there while the home became flooded with police, crime scene techs, and the media. There were some who noted that this was very similar to when police were clearing the house of John Wayne Gacy, and as the local population watched on in horror that someone they knew was capable of such evil, it was about to become much worse. An important thing to note here is that this is still a developing story, and that there have been articles about the ongoing investigation as recent as July 4th of 2022. So, when I say that as of the date of this upload, there have been a total of 4,600 bones that have been recovered from his home, all human, there is a chance that the number could very well increase. Initially, with the first investigation, 3,787 bones were removed, and Andres was immediately charged with Reina's death. With the original 3,787 bones removed, forensic was able to separate them and state that they belonged to at least 19 different people altogether, 17 of those being women, 1 being a child, and 1 being an adult male. And this may come as either a shock to everyone or as no surprise, but as of the date of this upload, Andres has only been charged with 5 murders. The remaining are still being sorted out, but one of those 5 and the one that got him life in prison was Reina. Andres has been said to be very cooperative with police on this matter and has gone on record as saying, "I don't deny anything. I blame myself. All I want is to tell the truth. I've done it. And that's it." One weird thing about this case is that Andres has confessed to 30 different killings, yet he has not admitted guilt over Reina. One theory on this matter is that he could feel a lot of guilt about her since he actually knew her and was friends with her. He stated that the majority of his victims were all strangers that he met in bars. He then said that he would invite them back to his house, and when they would reject any advance that he would make, he would fly into a rage, and well, you can guess the outcome there. Andres has stated that his first victim was in 2007, and with his confessions, Mexican police have been able to close, or at the very least, link several missing persons cases to him. Andres has also said that he was inspired by the film The Silence of the Lambs and enjoyed keeping accounts of every single one of his victims. Police were able to back those accounts up by presenting a notebook found in his home containing entries of the victims' names, descriptions, and even some having a date next to their name. Andres has also kept souvenirs of all of his victims, ranging from things like wallets, IDs, earrings, clothing items, nail polish, purses, a hairdryer, cell phones, pictures, and a few necklaces. Police investigating this horrific crime have also been said to have come across films that Andres recorded of his victims both before and after death. But those tapes, if they exist, have not been shown to the public, and I think that is for the best. Andres has been seen by several psychologists to try to get a better understanding of why he committed these horrible crimes. While that is still an ongoing investigation, Andres has given slight glimpses into his frame of mind. As one psychologist reported, it was a hatred, a huge hostility towards the female figure. Andres himself had this to say: "I always thought women were very cold and manipulative, and that they always changed me and caused me to be this violent man." It was later said that because of his low self-esteem and hatred of women, he would make them his victims to not only feel a sense of power, but in his mind, acceptance from them as well. And as twisted as that sounds, what Andres said after his conviction was enough to sicken the entire country. See, Andres didn't just end the lives of some of these women. He went a step further and gave in to his cannibalistic desires. And not only that, but also felt that others should as well. Andres, being a butcher, was said to have served his victims to unknown people all around the area. While none of this can be fully confirmed, they are said to be true by Andres. And whether or not it is true, or just a twisted story to strike further fear into the area, it is only truly known by the monster himself. Andres Mendoza is proof that the monsters we imagine as kids are nothing compared to what people like him are capable of. And to give you a full and clear picture to the type of evil that Andres Mendoza is, I will end this with a quote from him when talking about one of his victims. "I removed the skin from her face, simply because she was very pretty." Today's video is sponsored by Scentbird. One thing about me is that I have somewhat of an obsession with cologne. I have been wearing them since I was in high school, and I always try to add it to my everyday routine. It goes without saying that one of the first things a person will notice about you is your scent, and having something that is pleasing to both you and whoever you are around is a good way to be remembered. This is where Scentbird comes in. Scentbird stands out by having more than 600 brands to choose from, ranging in iconic names like Gucci and Versace to more indie labels like Vince Camuto. Buying cologne online can be tricky. After all, you can't exactly smell your screen. But don't worry, Scentbird has a personalized quiz that you can take that allows you to filter colognes based off of who you are as a person. If you are an outdoorsy person who enjoys laying in the summer sun and soaking in the ocean, then perhaps you'll enjoy Maritime by Tommy Bahama. Or if you are a night owl who prefers the finer things in life, then maybe Mercedes-Benz Man may be the perfect pairing for your night out. Scentbird is now available in both the US and Canada. Scentbird is a must for those who want to look good, feel good, and smell amazing. And right now, you can get your own luxury fragrance for only $7 using my code. Make sure to use code CADABER55 for 55% off your first month at Scentbird to start smelling your best today. Special thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. Remember to use code CADABER55 for 55% off your first month. Ever since we have been kids, our parents, teachers, and even the media has warned us about stranger danger and how best to avoid them. But even then, it's no full guarantee that you will always be safe, and you may truly never know a person's intentions until it is far too late. This is the type of situation that Heather Saul found herself in on the night of July 18th, 2015. When she crossed paths with a man named Neil Falls. Neil Falls, by many accounts now, are that he was a very mysterious individual. While not much is known about him, what is known is that for several years he was living in various places around Nevada and was employed as a security guard for the Hoover Dam. He was said to be very friendly and polite by his friends, and he was a person who rarely drank and never consumed drugs. He did, however, have a large interest in firearms and was an avid collector of them. He also frequently abused animals, and due to this, he alienated himself away from many of his coworkers. The thing about Neil was that he seemed to be welcoming and inviting enough to be his friend, yet when someone would get close, he would show the darker version of himself that would eventually make people keep him at a distance. From 2009 to 2015, Neil moved all over the country and was living in Indiana, Oregon, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, New York, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. He also had numerous run-ins with the police over traffic violations. Yet, with all of those interactions with police, Neil was never seen as a threat to the public, and nobody knew of the dark secret that he was hiding. Neil was also said to frequent prostitutes and going so far as to travel to the Philippines in 2005 for the sole purpose of having a different partner every night, if you catch my drift. The almost never-ending desire he had for prostitution is exactly how Neil Falls and Heather Saul met on July 15th, 2015. Neil Falls found Heather Sauls on the now since shut down website Backpage. Once some back and forth messages and information was exchanged, Neil made his way to Heather's residence, and once arriving, he closed the door behind him and said to Heather, "Do you want to live or die?" Wasting little time, Neil pulled out a pistol and aimed it at Heather, demanding her to lay on the ground. As Heather complied, Neil began yelling at her more, and without hesitation, he began to strangle her. Realizing that it was time to either accept death or fight back, Heather tried her best to fight, scratching at his face and eventually grabbing a small rake and began striking Neil in the face with it. This is where Neil made his fatal flaw, as he placed the gun down to grab the rake, and as soon as he did that, Heather grabbed the gun and shot him. Within a matter of seconds, Heather's would-be killer was now laying on the ground. dead. In shock, Heather began screaming, and when she regained her composure, she quickly grabbed the phone and called the police. When police arrived, they found Heather frantic and scared. They took her away from the scene and then began to search Neil and his car. On his person, they found items that would make anyone's blood run cold. They found 4 sets of handcuffs as well as a knife. Even more was found in his car, as they found a machete, an axe, more knives, a shovel, a sledgehammer, bleach, trash bags, bulletproof vest, socks, and a spare change of clothes. What was obviously apparent from the discovery of these items, as well as Heather's story, was that Neil was very much planning on killing Heather. But as the shock of the event began to settle, police started connecting the dots that made this story go from what was thought of as an isolated incident to something much larger. Police started to piece together Neil's movements to the areas in which he lived in, because things didn't seem to add up to the police with the aftermath of the event with Heather. Police obviously noticed the weapons that he brought with him, along with the bleach and change of clothes, and it told them that he was very organized. A bigger picture started being painted, as Neil's MO was able to be linked to his previous locations. During the time he lived in Nevada from 2003 to 2007, 4 women disappeared, all with the same professions as Heather. 3 of those 4 women would later be found dismembered in Illinois and Nevada. 6 more women disappeared from Ohio, 2 hours away from where Neil himself was living at the time. All of these women had one thing that linked all of them together. They all advertised themselves on websites like Backpage and various others. Even more damning was at the scene of the crime with Heather, a list was found on Neil's person that contained the names of 6 women along with their phone numbers. Thankfully, these 6 women were all found alive and safe. Police have theorized that they could have been potential victims for Neil. Since 2015, police have actively been looking into Neil's past, and not only where he lived, but as well as any disappearances that match the MO of Neil Falls. As of right now, no known victims have been able to be fully tied to Neil, but there are currently, as of the date of this upload, 8 potential victims of Neil Falls. Those 8 are Jody Brewer, Lindsay Marie Harris, Misty Marie Sains, Tiffany Sayer, Shasta Himmelrich, Charlotte Trago, Tamika Lynch, and Wanda Lemons. The mystery that surrounds Neil Falls, and if he were in fact a serial killer, is still debated to this day. Nobody can say for certain that he was, yet nobody can disregard him either. The only thing for certain is that he was clearly planning on making Heather either his first victim or just another one for him to add to his overall total. Heather Saul has since moved on with her life and has even been featured in the documentary called The Killing Season. There are many who credit her with having stopped an active serial killer. The even more crazy thing is that Heather managed to fight off Neil while having a broken back and a dislocated shoulder, and still overcame him and saved her own life. Without her determination to fight back, who knows how many more women Neil Falls would have gone on to harm. While we may never truly know how many victims, if any, Neil Falls had, what is known is that a very bad man was stopped by a person who wouldn't go down without a fight. I have covered some very bizarre things on this channel, ranging from a woman who was labeled as missing, even though there were many in her family that still maintain contact with her and know her general location, to a town bully who was killed in broad daylight with over a dozen witnesses, yet decades later, nobody has been arrested for it. Needless to say, there is not much that I come across that genuinely shocks me and plays out like something out of a modern mystery bestseller. Then, About a week ago, I came across a story revolving around a little girl whose entire existence has been entangled in mystery, tragedy, and darkness. The little girl that you are seeing on screen right now is Boram, known throughout a lot of Korean media simply as Baby Boram. And on February 10th, 2021, a crime would be reported that would turn from tragic to something that is still to this day leaving people with questions, and many so disgusted with those involved that they cannot tell what is true and what is just another lie. But before I get ahead of myself, let's go back to the beginning. February 10th, 2021. In the city of Gumi in South Korea, an older couple received a phone call from their landlord informing them that their daughter, named Kim, had not been heard from for several months, and that her rent hadn't been paid. The older couple that the landlord had called were the parents of Kim, her mother, Suk, and Suk's husband. Concerned of this information and given that they lived in the same apartment complex as Kim, Suk and her husband made their way up to Kim's apartment, and once inside were met with a very eerie and quiet scene. The entire apartment was empty of almost all furnishings, and it appeared the apartment had been empty for some time. As Suk peeked into every room to check if anything had been left behind, she finally made her way to her granddaughter's bedroom, and that was when she saw something no parent or grandparent should ever have to experience. Suk screamed as she saw the body of her granddaughter, 3-year-old Boram, completely mummified. Suk screamed for her husband, and after frantically trying to do anything to save the little girl, they quickly knew that she had passed away months ago. Suk's husband quickly called the police, and once they arrived, they sealed off the area and began searching for any signs of Kim, as now they had no idea if she was also missing and potentially in danger, or if she played a part in what happened to Boram. The police were able to quickly find Kim and found it shocking that she was not even attempting to hide from them. She was actually openly living with another man, whom she had recently married, and even more shocking and disturbing was that Kim had given birth to another child. Kim was arrested and taken in for questioning about Boram. And that was when Kim admitted to leaving behind Boram due to her being pregnant with her current child, and that she didn't want to keep Boram any longer. As disgusting as these actions of Kim's were, Kim actually began to piece together a story to horrified and shocked officers as to why she did what she did. So, back in April of 2020, Kim and her first husband and the father of Boram, Hong, were divorcing due to Kim having an affair with her now current husband. Hong, who was not in the best financial situation during the divorce, requested that Kim take care of Boram while he worked and got himself into a better position to raise her. Kim agreed to this, but also informed police that she spent all of April and May neglecting the child and eventually grew to resent her as she reminded her of Hong. Because of this and the pregnancy of her second child, Kim eventually decided to just move out of the apartment and move in with her now current husband, leaving her child Boram behind in the apartment. And as shocking as these accusations were, they were all true. And as more from this story began to be revealed, the more this story would begin to blend tragedy and mystery into straight-out confusion. Shortly after Kim's arrest, a DNA test was performed on Kim and Boram, and the results that came back revealed that Kim was not actually Boram's mother, but instead, she was Boram's sister. Now, yes, I was having the same thought going through my mind that a lot of you are probably having right now. And as crazy as it sounds, it was proven by DNA that Boram was indeed not the daughter of Kim, but instead the daughter of Kim's mother, Suk. And this is where this story gets even more flipped upside down. Suk refuted all claims that Boram was her daughter, but the DNA test was verified 4 different times, and DNA has a track record of not lying. So with even irrefutable evidence presented to her, Suk still denied that Boram was her daughter. A bigger shock came out later when looking back at the birth of Boram, because many wondered how people even figured Kim was the mother if she was never pregnant. Well, that's the thing. When Boram was born, Kim was also pregnant. So both Suk and Kim, mother and daughter, gave birth within days apart. To add even more confusion to this entire story, Suk's husband wasn't the father, since Suk was having multiple affairs as well with numerous other men, and one of them got her pregnant, and that pregnancy led to baby Boram. Shortly after this information came out, both Kim and Suk were arrested, and police were trying their best to figure out exactly what happened with Boram's birth, how Suk hid the fact that she was pregnant from her husband, how she managed to hide that Boram was hers for over 3 years, and the biggest question, if Boram was Suk's, then where was Kim's baby? Some of these questions still do not have any answers, unfortunately. But from what I was able to learn from the story was that this all came from a bitter falling out between Kim and Suk. Kim never got along with her mother, and Suk felt that she had failed as a parent and for years had told people, including her husband, that she wished she had another chance to be a better parent and have a good relationship with her daughter. Yet nobody thought these were the words of someone who would eventually make that happen. Police have put together somewhat of a timeline from what happened with Boram's birth and Kim's pregnancy. What police have theorized was that when Kim was in the hospital and had delivered her baby, Suk, like any grandmother, wanted to be there to help look after the infant while the mother recovered from giving birth. Police believe this is where the swap happened, as Suk had her child days before giving birth to baby Boram. This is when Suk swapped Kim's baby with Boram. There unfortunately was no information as of today on Kim's baby and what happened to the infant. What some think happened is that Suk took Kim's baby and put the baby up for adoption, but that in and of itself has holes in it and can easily be argued against. We also still have no idea who the actual biological father of Boram is, as again, due to the numerous affairs Suk was having, it has been proven difficult to find the father. And then the biggest twist came after Suk and Kim had been arrested. What came out from Suk was a confession that shows just how twisted both Suk and Kim truly are. Suk confessed that Kim called her one day and told her that she had left Boram behind. She told her that Boram was dead and that she didn't know what to do. Suk told Kim that she would, in her own words, take care of it. Phone records of the phone call taking place were proven shortly after this confession. On top of that, police were able to get evidence that one day before the phone call was made that started this entire shocking case, that Suk actually went into the apartment and attempted to get rid of the remains. But she was scared by a gust of wind that actually slammed the bedroom door closed, and Suk became so frightened that she ran out of the apartment. She then came up with the plan to discover the body the next day. However, what I am shocked about is how they thought they would get away with any of this. I'm not sure if it was due to guilt that Suk had felt and that is why she called the police, or maybe she banked on them not doing the DNA test and could have hoped that the police would have thought the remains weren't Boram but instead a small animal. The whole logic, if there is any there, is very scattered, and it seems Suk and Kim were both very aware of what was going on, which then brings up the whole swapping story into question. What we do know as of the date of this upload is that both Suk and Kim have been charged with a slew of charges, and both are facing life in prison if convicted of everything. Hopefully more answers will come out, and if Kim's baby was placed for adoption, then I truly hope that baby went to a loving family, one that baby Boram deserved to have.